Welcome to Sunday School. It's good to be back with you for another Sunday School today. As you can see, I'm excited for the Blazers and cheering them on. We want to thank Chinawa and Kibwe for being our acolyte last week and Lily and Jolene for doing communion. We want to thank Olive for being our acolyte this week, and we want to thank Graham for all his songs. Today's ordinary person who changed the world is Gandhi. Gandhi was an Indian Hindu lawyer who worked through nonviolence to help India get its independence. Gandhi believed that people of different religions could work together to change the world. October 2nd, which is Gandhi's birthday, is a national holiday in India where he is known as Bapu, which means the father of the nation. Worldwide, October 2nd is International Day of Nonviolence. Gandhi inspired the civil rights and many other movements for freedom. Gandhi once said, the future depends on what you do today. He also said, an eye for an eye will only make the whole world blind. And finally, he said, be the change you wish to see in the world. Our scripture this morning comes from Matthew chapter 5, verses 38 through 40. And Jesus said, you have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, not to harm those who hurt you. If someone slaps you on the right cheek, turn your left to them as well. And when they take your shirt, give them your coat too. Now, Jesus wasn't telling us to take a beating but Jesus was telling us that through nonviolence, to act in a way that wakes up the world, that helps the world recognize it needs to change. As we head into Sunday school, may we dare to indeed be that change in the world. See you later.
May God's light and love be with you all.
Here's this week's quiz. In what city did the Holy Spirit pour into people's hearts and minds on the day of Pentecost? Was it A, Jabala, B, Jersey City, C, Jerusalem? Announce your answer. The correct answer is C, Jerusalem. Which of Jesus' apostles spoke to the crowd in Jerusalem on the day of Pentecost? Was it A, Peter? Was it B, Paul? Or was it C, Mary? Your answer? The correct answer is A, Peter. The Pentecost story is found in what book of the New Testament? A, Romans, B, Acts, or C, Galatians? Your answer? The correct answer is B, Acts. Thanks for taking the quiz. I am Gandhi. Can you tell I was small? I spent most of my time with books. I wasn't good at sports like soccer. In fact, I'd run home after school afraid that people would make fun of me. But I liked taking long walks. Even with all my books, I wasn't a great student. I was bad at multiplication. And one day, when I got one of our spelling words wrong, the teacher pointed to another boy's paper. What's he doing? He wants you to copy it from me, so you'll get the right answer. I didn't think that was the right thing to do. That's not how to learn. When the teacher scolded me, I wasn't bothered. In my life, I didn't copy others' works. However, there was one story that was worth copying. It was a play I read in school about a man named Shravan Kumar. Shravan was so devoted to his parents that when they were too old to travel, he literally carried them on his back. It was an example I wanted to follow, one person carrying others who needed help. My father had a good job. He was a political leader, but there were many people who had no jobs. They were the poorest of the poor. They were treated terribly and had the worst jobs. There were even different laws that applied to them. Back then, the British were so powerful they ruled India. To get a good job like my father, I eventually moved to London, England, and became a lawyer. I even dressed up real fancy, trying to look rich and more British. When I moved back to India, I had my first case in court. This was the moment I trained for. All I had to do was question the witness. The moment I stood up, my heart sank to my boots. It was like the room was spinning. I sat back down without a word. Here's your money back. You need to hire someone who's good at this. That was my first case. I completely failed. Luckily, I got offered a new case in a country called South Africa. I was excited to try again. As I took the last part of my journey by train, a white passenger noticed me. He shouldn't be here. This is first class. But I have a first class ticket. He didn't like me because I was Indian. My skin was brown and his was white. Believe it or not, he had the law on his side. The train official asked me to leave. He said that if I didn't leave, he'd call the police. Yes, you may, I told him. I refused to get out voluntarily. A policeman pushed me out of the train and tossed my stuff onto the station platform. It was cold in the station and dark. I could have gotten back on the train and sat in third class. Instead, I stayed there all night, shivering. I also meditated, which is when you close your eyes and try to focus your mind. To finish the trip, I took a horse-drawn carriage, but once again, because of my skin color, they didn't let me sit inside with the white passengers. The driver hit me in the ears and tried to drag me down. I never hit him back, but I refused to let go. Eventually, he gave up. But this is how Indians were treated back then. To change it, I knew I had to take action. I had to fight, even if it meant suffering hardship. Within a week, I held a meeting for my fellow Indians in South Africa. It was the first public speech of my life. After the speech, we all had a discussion. There are times to talk, but there is also real power in listening. Soon after, I decided to stay in South Africa and form the Natal Indian Congress to help Indians there become more active in the government. But the most important thing I did there was come up with the Satyagraha. In Sanskrit, it combines the words satya, which means truth, and agra, which means firmness or force. Indeed, Satyagraha was my truth force. Satyagraha was how we'd fight against the unfair treatment of Indians. 1. Non-cooperation or civil disobedience. Protesting an unfair law in a nonviolent way. 2. Nonviolence, using love and peaceful methods. 3. Non-possession, living a simple life that uses only what you need, nothing more. Was I perfect? No. Sometimes I lost my temper. But that's when I figured out the best way to fight, by transforming myself and being the best person I could be. In no time at all, I tested out Satyagraha. A new law was passed that would kick Indians out of South Africa unless they registered with the government. People could stop us on the street and search our homes anytime they wanted. For breaking that law, they put me in prison for 2 months. They put me there again for breaking another law, one that said Indians couldn't travel to certain areas. You know, what's even stronger than that? People working together. Soon we started more settlements and farms where those who practiced Satyagraha could live a simple life in peace. As our peace army grew, so did our strength. when the South African government made Indians pay more taxes than white residents and refused to improve the safety of coal miners, we decided to protest by striking. It was just like Thoreau taught. Instead of using violence to protest the unfair rules, Indian people used a peaceful method. No one went to work at the coal mines. Without workers, the coal companies would go out of business. Now the only question was, would it succeed? It took years, but the South Africa government passed the Indian Relief Act of 1914, improving the lives of many Indians. I gave one of my greatest adversaries, the general who had arrested all those years ago, a pair of leather sandals. Why are you giving me these? I made them. They are a sign of friendship. Better to make friends than enemies. Truth force wins. Truth force! After 21 years, it was time to take what I had learned in South Africa back to my home in India. India was still run by the British, who treated us terribly. And worst of all, Indians still treated some other Indians terribly too. Gandhi, there's a family outside. They need a place to stay, but they are untouchables. We should turn them away. We need to carry others who need help. Let them in. Everyone is welcome here. To protest the unfair laws in India, we held another strike. For one full day, no one went to work. All of India, every shop, farm, restaurant closed down. The soldiers attacked the crowd. Over 1,000 were injured. Hundreds were killed. They hit us hard. It was tempting to hit back. But violence will never get what you want. As the head of our own organization, the Indian National Congress, I called for massive boycotts, which meant we would stop going to British schools and stop working for the British employers. Instead of buying British clothing, I urged people to use spinning wheels to make their own clothes. I would spin thread every day. I even made a cool outfit. I had to make sure that as many people as possible heard my message. To do that, I relied on the same thing as when I was younger. I walked. Only by standing together, rich and poor, could we be free from this unfair government. Only united are we unstoppable. That didn't mean everyone was on my side. Even though my work against the government was peaceful, the British again put me in prison, this time for 6 years. I smiled as they took me to jail. I did not mind prison. It allowed me to read, pray, learn, and keep spinning. But within 2 years, I got sick there. The government knew people would be enraged if something happened to me, so they let me out. I went right back to my mission. The British government still wouldn't leave India. They passed new laws called Salt Acts, which said Indians couldn't make or sell our own salt. We had to buy it from the British. How could we convince the British? We marched. On March 12, 1930, 78 people joined me as we headed toward the sea. I was 60 years old, walking 240 miles, 10 miles each day for nearly a month. The farther we walked, the more people joined us. They poured water on our paths to keep the dust down. They tossed flowers and leaves to make it easier to walk on. The crowd soon ballooned to thousands, stretching back for 2 miles. Reporters around the world told our story. I still don't know where we're headed. You'll see. The British want us to stop. Then we must keep going. 24 days later, we reached our destination, the village of Dandi near the Arabian Sea. There I gave my signal to the nation. I picked up a handful of salt left by the waves. That's it. I never raised my fists. I never carried a weapon. But in that act, holding salt that wasn't bought from the British government, I fought back. I broke the law with the entire world watching. That seems like a really dumb law. I think a lot of folks agree with you. Truth force. Soon after, I was arrested again. But over the next few days, thousands of Indians broke the same law. Just a few clumps of salt united our people and made the whole world realize how poorly the British were treating us. From there, it still took years, but we were on our way to India becoming a free country. My struggles weren't done, though. Remember the untouchables, the poorest of the poor? They were still suffering. I was in jail, but I could act. What's he doing? He says he's fasting, that he won't eat until the untouchables are treated fairly. Doesn't this guy ever give up? No, I don't, and I never will. Sir, people all over the country, they heard what you're doing. They're treating the untouchables fairly now, letting them into their temples. They could lock me up, they could put me in the dark, but they could never, ever defeat me. In my life, I was the small one, the skinny one, the poor one, even the shy one, but I was never weak. I was never the weak one. Over many years, I had many fights, but to fight by purposely avoiding violence, to refuse to raise your fist no matter what is raised against you, some would call that foolish, madness. But what it really is courage. For his amazing work, people started calling Gandhi Mahatma, which means great soul. We also call him Bapu, which means father. Did you know even today the flag of India is required to be made of the same homespun cloth made famous by him? And remember the general who Gandhi made those sandals for? 20 years later, as a sign of friendship, he returned them to Gandhi, saying that he'd worn them many summers, but was never worthy to stand in the shoes of such a great man. Strength doesn't come from the size of your body. It comes from the size of your heart. Show love, especially when you want to fight unfairness. You must help others who are in need. Carry them on your shoulders. Speak up for them when they don't have a voice. Hold true to your beliefs. I am Gandhi, and in a gentle way, I will shake the world. I'm in Riverside Cemetery, just west of Albany General Hospital, where tomorrow we're going to see flags and flowers decorating the graves for Memorial Day. It's the day each year we honor the men and women who died in military service to our country. And on this Memorial Day, as we are emerging from the pandemic, let's also honor the more than 590,000 Americans who have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 16 months. I'm going to sing a song that's fitting for Memorial Day, Amazing Grace, and you can sing along with me. While we sing, you'll see images of past Memorial Days around the country and many names, including those of Lynn County service members who died in wars dating back to World War I more than 100 years ago. Their names are listed on the memorial walls of Timberlynn Memorial Park in Albany. Now, Amazing Grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace hath brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home.
Well, we gather for communion. And it's at the table that Jesus meets us right where we are and challenges us to be the change in the world. We remember on the night that Jesus was betrayed, he took the bread and he blessed it and he broke it and he gave it to them. And he said, "Take, eat. This is my body broken for you. As often as you eat this bread, remember me." In the same way, after the supper, Jesus took the cup and he gave thanks for it and gave it to the disciples and said, "Take, drink. This is my life poured out for you. As often as you drink this cup, remember me." The bread of life, the cup of hope, our God's love with us always, challenging us to be the change in the world.
So our closing song is the one you know. We're going to do it without music today. We'll do it a cappella. The Lord's Prayer, get up, and there's 4 places. Remember, we jump, and I'm going to try to jump at least 2 or 3 inches if I can get up that high. So, got to be up. You can jump higher than me. Ready? Here we go. Our Creator who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. God, hear our prayer, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from all that is evil. Hear our prayer. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. God Almighty, hear our prayer. Well, enjoy the rest of this Memorial Day holiday weekend. And tomorrow, on Memorial Day, let's pause and remember and honor those who lost their lives in service to their country, and remember our loved ones who are no longer with us. So may the peace of Christ be with you. Have a great week. Stay safe. Bye-bye.